Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Secretary. Good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Welcome back to the 9:30 call.
Great to be here.
We'll
Great
give
to be here.
folks a minute to join. And good morning, Elizabeth or Liz. I see you as well. It's great to
Yep, good
have you.
morning. Nice to see everyone.
We do have translation this morning, so I'm going to turn it over to Julian from Excel Linguistics. We are translating in both Spanish and Portuguese. Um, and I'll just remind our speakers that when we have translation, and always, it's good practice to speak slowly so they can keep up with us. So, Julian, I'll turn things over to you.
Thank you, Amy. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this 9:30 call. As Amy was saying, we have interpretation available in Spanish and also in Portuguese. So we're going to make this announcement in both. I'm going to share my screen. We're going to make this announcement in English, Spanish, and Portuguese to let you know how to select your language. In just a moment, you will see this globe icon next to the word interpretation. You will find this at the bottom of your Zoom screen. If you click on that globe, you can select your language. If you have joined from a cell phone or tablet, look for the three dots button on your screen next to the word More. From there, you will see interpretation as an option in the list to choose your language. An important reminder, everyone should select the language and remain in that channel. Now I will turn it over to Jimena to repeat that in Spanish.
Buenos días a la llamada de las 9:30. Esta mañana tenemos interpretación en portugués y en español. En un momento usted verá que el icono de un globo aparece en la parte inferior de su pantalla. De ahí podrá seleccionar el idioma en el que quiere participar. Si usted se está uniendo a través de un celular o de una tableta, busque los tres puntitos junto a la palabra more o más y de ahí aparecerá Language Interpretation. Si le da clic, aparecerá el menú de los idiomas y podrá seleccionar en el que quiere participar. Como un recordatorio, independientemente del idioma en el que usted hable, por
250.
favor seleccione un idioma y permanezca en ese canal. Gracias.
Thanks, Jimena. Juan, can you please repeat that in Portuguese?
Certainly, Julian. Good morning, everyone. This is Juan, Spanish and Portuguese interpreter. I will be providing interpretation in Portuguese this morning. Bom dia para todos. Sejam bem-vindos na reunião para acessar o recurso da interpretação simultânea português. Localize o globo na parte inferior direita da tela. Faz um clique sobre o globo e selecione português como seu idioma de preferência. Se você estiver se conectando a partir de um iPhone, iPad, tablet, localize os três pontinhos na parte superior direita da tela, Language Interpretation, e selecione português como seu idioma de preferência. Seja qual for o seu idioma, precisa de selecionar português, nesse caso, para participar ativamente da reunião. Muito obrigado, sejam bem-vindos todos. Back to you, Julian.
Thanks, Juan. Okay, Amy, the globe is there. We're all set to go.
Great. So I'm going to also pin the secretary and Liz as they get talking because there are so many people here this morning with their cameras on. So it's lovely to, oh, and good morning, Commissioner Kershaw. We
Good morning,
also,
Amy and 9:30 callers. Happy to be here supporting the secretary and all of you.
and you will be a two-peat this week, unlike the Chiefs who did not have a three-peat on Sunday. The commissioner will be joining us on Thursday. So I'm still letting people in. So it's great to see folks. Secretary, we know you and Liz have an update to share with us. Just some logistics. If folks want to say good morning in the chat, we will send the chat to the secretary, Liz, and the commissioner. So everybody will be able to see the chat. If you have questions, please put them in the chat. So even if we don't get to them, we will send them and hopefully get answers. And then we also know, and Heidi reminded us that the board meeting is in Framingham tomorrow. So with that, Secretary, welcome back. We look forward to hearing from you.
Thank you, Amy. Really appreciate the opportunity to be back with you, and really appreciate you for convening these meetings and keeping the sector
Yes.
together.
Yes, I would.
So if you are
Hold
joining
on,
us,
I lost
please
it.
put yourself on
Oh,
mute.
it is MC84.
Okay, I will try to find them too.
That's okay.
Yep.
That's okay. I'll just wait till they get muted.
Okay.
Not a big deal.
Okay, you should be set.
Okay, awesome. Was just thanking you for all that you do to keep the sector together and informed. Really appreciate you and the opportunity to be back. I would like to do really three things in the time that I have with you this morning. The first and perhaps most important is express gratitude to all of the providers who have joined this morning. The second thing I want to do is convey a really clear message about values, about beliefs, and about direction. And the third thing I want to do is share a little bit of information about concerns that have been expressed about federal immigration authorities and the rights of families. I have a colleague who I will introduce in just a moment who will facilitate that part. But I want to sort of name in the very beginning that I hoped that I was going to be able to spend my time this morning talking about the Interagency Task Force and the release of its first report. As many, if not all of you are aware, the governor signed an executive order calling for the whole of state government to lean into solving for significant challenges that we know exist with your work in the early education sector. We've been working in earnest for just over a year, and a big piece of that work involved soliciting input, getting feedback through the listening sessions, which happened last spring and summer, and were so transformative in so many ways. The substance of what we heard, recommendations for the next step in the work are captured in this report, and we're really excited about it. It's in the final stages, and I suspect will be released soon, but unfortunately not ready for today. I do want to make the most of the time that I have with you, and it's really important to begin with gratitude. And I extend my sincere thanks to all of you who are joining this morning and all who could not join for your commitment, your deep contributions to children and families, and to each other. No doubt, early education experiences create such an important foundation for young people and their lives, and we all know that it's the cornerstone of the state's economy, creating the critical opportunities for parents and caregivers to work or to further their education. In my humble opinion, you don't hear it enough. Thank you for all that you do. For years, we in Massachusetts have been and continue to be a national leader in education. And we've taken great strides in the past 2 years, particularly in the early education and care sector. What is proposed in the governor's budget is a clear sign of both commitment and an understanding of the importance of the work that you all do. That said, this distinction as a national leader did not happen by accident. It's the direct result of a very simple but profound principle that we in Massachusetts have embraced for years, and it is this: every individual in the Commonwealth is entitled to a high-quality education regardless of their circumstances. The last 2 years, our work has been in furtherance of this principle, and yet we want to go deeper, expanding access to affordable childcare for families, also ensuring that students receive the mental and behavioral health supports that they need. making sure that young people and the valued educators, all of you who guide and inspire their learning and development, are safe, feel seen, and can succeed. Our mission continues to be to strengthen education and care in Massachusetts, and in so doing, strengthen that sincere commitment to students, to children, to ensure their safety, and to provide the critical experiences and supports that they all need to survive and thrive, all of them. We've made progress, but that doesn't mean that the winds of progress will always be at our back. On any journey as important as this, there may be headwinds that threaten not only our progress, but those that test the strength of the foundation that we've already built. The advice that we, as educators, sometimes need to give our families, we might need to give ourselves. Now is the time to steel our spine, as they say, or keep moving forward, remembering what got us to the place that we're in the first place. Across the Education Secretariat, we have a set of core values, among which are advancing equity and inclusion and maintaining a holistic perspective. These core values were true yesterday, are true today, and continue to guide our work, transforming our education systems to be more affordable, accessible, and equitable for all students. We will continue to move forward toward realizing a system that makes accessible and delivers a high-quality education and care experience to every young person in Massachusetts, regardless of where they live, what their background is, or what their circumstances might be. I look forward to continuing that work and our partnership as we move forward. Of course, I can't control the messaging and the signals that are coming from the highest levels of government, but we can control the communications to you, our communications to you. You can count on communication and guidance from us. In fact, a general service provider guidance from the Attorney General's office is going out from EEC this morning. In fact, I believe it's already been sent out. Further, specific guidance on early education is coming from the Attorney General's office in the coming days. Commissioner Kershaw will continue to be a presence in this space on these calls at least once a month following the board meetings. In fact, as Amy mentioned, she'll be back on Thursday this week. And I know that members of her team are consistently present on this call. We will continue to communicate, offer guidance, and clarity as we move forward. I know that there are deep concerns about supporting children and families whose status remains uncertain. Here with me this morning to offer some guidance on some of the challenges and concerns is Elizabeth Matos, who is the chief of the Civil Rights Division from the Attorney General's office. I would like for her to join me and offer some guidance, but also want to underscore again, we are in this together. We have your back, and we'll continue to offer guidance and communicate clearly in this time of uncertainty, in this time of chaos and confusion, and in this time of fear. Elizabeth, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Tutwiler. I really appreciate that overview and really important commentary from you. I also really appreciate Commissioner Kershaw and all the work that you do, and Amy O'Leary and all that who organized this particular meeting, and want to reiterate the thanks expressed to all of the childcare providers here. I have 3 boys who have all gone through family daycare and are all in public schools in the state now, and just want to express my gratitude for all of the hard work that it takes to really be in partnership and bringing our children into healthy and safe spaces and be ready to take on school. So thank you all for that. I want to start also by acknowledging that these are very difficult times, but I think we're doing what we need to be doing and coming together in these spaces and talking about the uncertainties and getting clarification when we need to get that clarification. And I also want to express before I get into the parameters of the guidance documents that we've created, that we stand here as a partner with you. The Attorney General's office is very busy right now and is fully committed to continuing to push back on the things that are harming and will continue to threaten the health and safety of residents in Massachusetts so that we hold the line and ensure that our laws continue to be followed. So I just want to reiterate that and make sure that you know that we're here as a partner and to not hesitate to reach out if we can be helpful. What I would like to do is start by just giving you an overview of the service provider guidance that was just released, and I'll also post that in the chat right now. It's a link to where the guidance lives on our website so that you can easily find it. I also want to say there are a number of other guidance documents on that site, including the one for K through 12 schools and for higher education and for healthcare centers and providers. So there are multiple guidance documents out there. There's also an emergency planning document and a few other things that you may find helpful, in addition to general guidance about just anti-discrimination law and how it impacts immigrant communities in particular in various contexts. So Secretary Tutwiler already mentioned that I'm the chief of the Civil Rights Division. I'm also a senior advisor to the Attorney General. The Civil Rights Division, just very briefly, has the Children's Justice Unit within the division. We also have a Police Accountability Unit. We have, in addition to that, a concentration in disability rights and do a lot of anti-discrimination work in the areas of housing, employment, public accommodations, and in other spaces. So I just want to make sure everyone knows that, and that you can submit a complaint to the Civil Rights Division. You don't have to even be the person directly impacted. You could submit that complaint on behalf of others. Okay, so the service provider guidance that was just recently released, there's a lot in it that pertains to other contexts as well, and also pertains to the early education and family daycare, residential daycare context. But I will mention some caveats after I go through the general parameters that are related to the childcare setting so that you have an understanding of that. And just to be clear, the service provider guidance is already out and released, but the early education and child care center guidance is still forthcoming. We're finalizing that, but should be out very, very soon. The first thing I want to mention is that you should all be thinking about what information you are collecting from families and of children who are engaging in your services. Oftentimes, information is being collected and requested that is not necessary, in particular around immigration status and personal identifying information. So that's a good place to start, is to see if what you're asking for is absolutely necessary so that you aren't in the position of having being in the possession of a lot of information that might be a request that you don't actually need in order to provide the services that you're providing. So that's one place to start. The other is, if you do have that information, to ensure that you have good policies around keeping that information private, so that sensitive information is not in view of others and is always kept privately. So a few things to mention. There was a directive, an ICE directive, that basically said that ICE is prohibited from going into a number of what they would call sensitive location or protected areas, and that did include schools and hospitals and churches and places like that. You probably have already heard that that directive was rescinded by the Trump administration a few weeks ago. And in its place, basically, is a policy saying that I should use common sense. So we do not have further guidance, and further guidance has not been provided by the administration around what exactly that means. We can say that although there have been some reports here and there across the country, we have not heard of any in Massachusetts of ICE officials going into schools or churches. So if you know of instances like that, our office would be very interested in knowing about that. But our understanding is that there have not been such incidents so far. So what we're really focusing on is trying to give you guidance on how to prepare. And I should say that because of who we are, we're able to give guidance, but not really give you advice. So what I'm saying, what I'm talking about now is really to give you suggestions on what can be done because I can't advise you on what to do exactly. So that's why I'm couching the information in a particular way. So, for example, it would be really helpful and likely a good practice for everyone to have policies reduced to writing as to what to do if there is engagement with ICE. For example, you could have a policy that talks about training, like you could engage in know your rights trainings, and there are a number of organizations that are doing that right now. The Office of Refugees and Immigrants are conducting on-demand Know Your Rights trainings. The MIRA Coalition, which stands for the Massachusetts Immigrant Refugee Advocacy Coalition, also has a link on their webpage that you can fill out a form and ask for a catered training. So you can do that as well. And they really get more into things like the nitty-gritty of the overview that I'm giving you and best practices like palm cards and other kinds of things that you can do internally to prepare families and your own staff.
And Liz, just to
Yep.
jump in, we had Mira on the call
Oh,
2 weeks
great.
ago with
Okay.
280 people, not the 318 we have this morning, but we recorded that call and we have all of their resources available as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you. So you're well on your way. Another one that I'll mention that seems to be really ahead of the curve as well is the National Immigrant Law Center. They do a ton of work in this space. One other thing to think about is engaging in emergency planning. We have a link to an emergency planning guide on our website, but that really gets into advising families on having someone designated in case a family is detained, a parent is detained, and you have their child in your daycare. What do you do? So talking to families about that might not be a bad idea either. And then another thing that's come up is designating private areas. It could be a good practice to have a private area. One is to discuss the kind of private information that I mentioned earlier, so that is out of view and out of earshot of others. Another is because ICE cannot go into private areas, and law enforcement generally cannot go into private areas without informed consent of the parent, or without a judicial warrant or subpoena. One thing I want to underscore is that oftentimes ICE officials and other law enforcement can have an administrative warrant. The administrative warrant is not sufficient authorization to enter private spaces. You really want to be looking for a judicial warrant or subpoena, and a judicial warrant or subpoena are signed by a judge and will be issued by a court. That is the major difference that you can see sort of on the four corners of the document as to what the difference is between a judicial warrant subpoena versus an administrative warrant. They should also state what the scope is of the warrant, the address, make sure they're in the right place because they may not be, and that has certainly occurred, and that what they're looking for is something you actually have. It's really helpful, I think, to have someone designated to be the person who engages with law enforcement. And some suggestions around how the engagement could happen is if law enforcement does show up, you could have the person say, I'm not the designated person. I need to call that person. Could you please give me your name and your position and take down that information and let them know that you're not trying to be obstructive. You're just not authorized um, to let them in, and if they could please wait outside while you get that person. And that person can come and ask for the documentation and review the documentation and make an assessment as to whether or not that person should be allowed to enter. I know for very small childcare centers, like the ones my children attended, are going to have a designated person. The designated person is going to be the childcare provider. And so having those trainings with Mira and being familiar with the documents and the differences between them can be very helpful. And having those private areas designated can also be a good practice. A couple of other things I want to mention, and then I'll stop and just make sure I'm allowing time for others, is in the childcare context in particular. If a childcare facility receives federal funding, it must protect the private information, private identifying information of children in their care. And they're subject to FERPA, right, which is the Federal Education Rights and Privacy Act. So that's something to be very aware of. Also, they cannot disclose the information to law enforcement or ICE. As I said, this is particularly important without informed parental consent or the judicial warrant or subpoena. And I think you know this already, but that private identifying information includes things like a child's name, the parent's name, address, social security numbers, date of birth, things of that nature. And again, just want to underscore that administrative warrants do not authorize entry into non-public spaces. So I will stop there. The one other thing that the service provider guidance does get into is just the intersection with what's called public charge. It's a complicated area, but public charge basically is there's a government rule that that wants to discourage people from becoming dependent on state resources or on government resources. And so there are negative implications and consequences for certain kinds of immigrants who receive public benefits, but it's only certain kinds of public benefits, and it does not impact people who, for example, have a green card or temporary protected status or some other immigration statuses are not impacted by the receipt of things like SNAP, for example, or CHIP, or different kinds of public benefits that could implicate that for people. So I will stop there and just say thank you again for the space. And if you would like me to answer questions, I'm happy to. I'm also very happy to come back another time and do that.
We would love to have you come back. And I think I just wanted to clarify. So Secretary Tutwiler and Elizabeth, you're both talking about the same guidance that's going to come out. And so I think if it's still being worked on, we also will send all these questions so we make sure that you know what was said this morning.
Can I just clarify for a second, Amy?
Yes.
So there's general guidance for service providers, which is done. Elizabeth,
Yes.
the general guidance for service providers, not just early education, but service providers working with folks in the communities that need to know the general guidance that Liz has talked about. That is available. It's posted. They're working on having that translated so that it can be available in multiple languages. EEC will also be sending that out through our lead database today. So that will get out to everyone.
Got it.
In the meantime, we are also working with the Secretary's office and the Attorney General's office on guidance specific to the early education and care sector. That is not ready yet, but as soon as it is available, we will also send that out through our lead database. And we'd be happy to work with Liz and the Secretary to schedule a time here when that guidance is out to talk about some of the specific questions. But all the questions that you all have provided in the chat are extremely helpful for us as we finalize that guidance. So we know exactly what you're worried about in your specific settings. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yep. So that I did give a lot of the highlights of what's anticipated in the early education childcare guidance. But yes, I think in the meantime, you should feel free to make use of the service provider guidance. That's what it's intended for. But we also realize there are some things more particular to this very young population and this setting,
Right.
and we want to make sure we're giving you more catered information. So forthcoming very, very soon.
Thank you for that. And Secretary, I'll give you the last word. We know this is a half-hour call. We're going a little over, but would love to give you the last word. Elizabeth, we'll also be in touch with you because we would love to have you come back.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me the privilege of being here to communicate with all of these providers who have joined this morning. Thank you to Elizabeth Matos for your very helpful sort of distilling of lots of information that I think people really need to know and have been eager to grasp. Thank you, Commissioner Kershaw, for your continued, steady, thoughtful, values-based leadership. It is an honor to work alongside you. I'll go back to what I said in the very beginning, which is a very clear statement about what we believe and the fact that we will continue our work here in Massachusetts. And I see a lot of the questions in there, and we're going to take those, and I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to provide responses to them. So know that we are committed to that, and know that we are committed to staying in communication, providing guidance and clarity in this context and in the context going forward. I think staying together, which is the beauty of this call, is really important at this time. So again, I appreciate all of you. I appreciate your work and know that we are committed to staying with you and moving forward.
Thank you to the Secretary, to Commissioner. We'll see Commissioner on Thursday. Please join me in thanking Excel Linguistics. We added Portuguese on Monday, and they jumped right in to help us. So all the materials are available on the follow-up kind of part of our website. And so we'll have the recording in English, Spanish, and Portuguese. We'll kind of maybe set up a special folder for all the links that are coming in that are updated so folks know where to get information. So thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow, we're going to share the mic. If folks have updates or questions, we'll continue to collect questions to share with folks in state government. And then we'll have the commissioner with us on Thursday. Today is also Head Start Advocacy Day, so I'm heading over to the State House. Thursdays is a YMCA's Advocacy Day, and tomorrow is the board meeting for EEC. So thank you so much, and we will see everyone tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy. Have a great day, everyone.
Thanks, Julian.